Welcome back to the chat. We are joined now by a familiar guest to this show. We're happy to welcome back former president of the WNBA and the founder and chief executive officer for Generation W, Donna Orender. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be back. It's been a while.
It has been a while. And we wanted to get your take on a few things, but one of which there was a story that was recently in the news, and it comes after a WNBA, or the organization, suspended Brittany Griner and Glory Johnson 7 games each because they were involved in a domestic violence arrest last month. Now, the league on Friday cited the integrity of the game when handing down the punishment, but there are some people who are coming out now and they are saying that that is too harsh when you compare that to the punishment of other athletes, and they pointed out Ray Rice, who was initially suspended for 2 games following the assault of his fiancée, and we all remember what happened in the elevator. Okay. Former president of the WNBA.
Yes.
Why don't you weigh in on this one?
I'm a couple of years away from sitting in these meetings or actually leading them, but it's always hard for benchmarks. Like, you want to know benchmarks, but it's apples and oranges in a lot of ways. Often what you try to do is you try to benchmark against where you've been with other kinds of issues. Disciplinary issues.
Where your league has been.
Exactly.
I was going to say, good point. Do you go cross leagues and look at the NFL?
So, so you know, what I did, and I didn't exactly remember this, but when I look back, the largest suspension to date until now at the WNBA was 6 games for a wonderful young woman. However, she was DUI'd second time, 2009. I actually oversaw that activity, and it was 6 games. So my guess here is that when Laura looked at this case and said, hey, listen, this is really probably the most egregious kind of offense, we really have to take it one step further. It really should be the most games suspended, and I think that could have been part of the discussion for 7.
Do you think the conversation now is that as women we're being very critical of leagues and athletes who do not, in colleges and universities, who do not hold their male athletes accountable?
Correct.
And now as women we must then hold ourselves accountable and say, well, if we're going to point the finger at you, then we've got to say that we're going to walk the walk if we're going to talk the talk. Do you think that factored into that at all?
Without a doubt. I mean, we talk about domestic violence as a culture against violent women issue, and it is, because most incidences are that way. But the truth of the matter is, it's a person-on-person violence issue. And therefore, we have to be accountable across the board, no matter if it's women against women, men against men. I mean, women attacking men, all of it we have to be accountable for. And so I think that the league's step here is a good one. It says, listen, we're about people, we're about humanity.
But why wouldn't you look at what other leagues have done? I mean, you're all professional sports organizations. Why not look at what other leagues have done and, you know, kind of go along with that? Why just be on your own and say that's not going to affect us?
I don't know. I'm not saying we don't say that, and I'm not saying that they didn't say that.
Okay.
And that is a data point when you look at it.
Okay.
But I don't. Every league, every decision that's made, as you can see, when the whole thing came up with Ray Rice and the NFL, they really didn't have any kind of program. He started out with 2 games. It wasn't that they looked it up in the book and said, oh, domestic violence, yes, automatically 6 games. So there's nuance to every single case that you look at. So to say that you can hardline benchmark, yes, on certain cases now, you know, at the WNBA when there's a DUI, and there's so few and far between, which also makes this hard.
Now,
right?
It's so true. Now, Donna, when you look at the NBA, they suspended Adam Silver, suspended Hornets forward Jeffrey Taylor for 29% of the games, right, of the season. Griner and Glory are suspended for 20% of the games of the season. And then Roger Goodell now said if you have domestic violence charge, it's 6-game automatic suspension, no pay. Second charge, you're banished from the league. So how does that stack up? Do you think that their suspensions were fair in the WNBA for these 2 girls?
Here's what I think was very well handled, that the WNBA addressed it rather quickly. Amazingly, the women, did you notice how women handle a lot of things more often than not differently than men? They owned up to it. Immediately, right? Brittany was booked. Her plea is being held as she's agreed to take a domestic violence lesson, whatever course, for 28 weeks, which will then expunge her record. You know what I mean? The women are much more forthcoming in saying, okay, I made a mistake. I'm a role model. I don't want this to happen. I'm going to take every step I can to make it better. Let's move on.
So true.
Although Ray Rice did say that he fully disclosed it to the NFL. He did say that.
Although, you know,
and then it gets into the whole argument of when did they see the video?
Yeah, exactly.
Did they see it in the whole 9 yards? But speaking of moving on, we want to ask you, because we just went through Generation W and had a great time.
I'm so glad you're all there. It was very much a ladies of the chat kind of event.
It was a lot of fun. So you put the bar pretty high. Now, what are you planning to do to then surpass that next year?
You know, it's
put you on the spot.
Yes. Oh, actually, we have, there was and continues to be such great feedback from so many people who attended that people call me now, which I love, and they'll say, hey, what about this idea? And I'm willing to get this person. And we want to do this. And I'm like, okay then. So I am not ready today, although we had a meeting early today to reveal what our next themes are, but we'll get there soon. I will tell you that there's some really powerful content, and I'm hoping, I know that Dr. Wells is going to be on the show later today, and I was so thrilled that she joined us because she's definitely a Generation W kind of woman.
Do you think that there was anything that people took away more than anything else? I know that when talking to the people who were there was a lot that they got from being at Generation W, but do you think there was one central theme that people walked away from, or maybe one speaker or something that really resonated like it hadn't before at Generation W?
You have to tell me that, right? Because you're sitting in the audience. Our feedback is incredible across the board. So a lot of people leave feeling inspired. They feel motivated, right? They feel able and appreciated to go on and live their lives in a more full way. I think from a community perspective, I think people really responded positively. This idea about Generation We, that men stepping up and helping help women get into the positions of leadership that make all of us better really resonated. And I think that's something we want to continue to build on. As we move forward. Of course, the whole talk about cultural violence. I mean, violence against women was very, very powerful, looking at all the different areas, and then absolutely having our local leaders in that particular, who do like God's work in this area in our community, was also very, very important. You tell me. I mean, you guys were there, so
there was a lot. We took in a lot, so it was always good. And so we are going to have you back as you unveil more portions of this coming up.
Yeah,
so next time you come on, we want more specifics.
Yeah. And
that's the pressure now.
You finish up the conference and you work on next year's immediately,
That's right.
don't you?
Probably you have no
Immediately.
time otherwise.
Immediately.
to do
And the
anything
whole program. In other words, now what's really happened is now it's a platform that we really want to continue to partner with all agencies, all kinds of organizations in our city and beyond.
We
and
need
we're
it
getting
all over.
And right.
More cities.
And so yesterday, I'll just share, I spoke to a woman who runs a global community responsibility program as well as inclusion, and she said, you need to do this globally.
Seriously.
Wow.
There you go.
Brazil.
Start here.
I'll come speak.
Miami.
Thank you, Donna.
Singapore.
We appreciate
London.
you as always coming, taking the time to join us here
Madrid.
on the
We're
show.
going.
We're going.
Now.
Hey.
Bye, everybody.
Chat on the road to Monaco coming up next. Wouldn't that be great? If you can pick a spot, why not there? Okay, why so many people are upset now about the new Beyonce music video. We're going to find out from Tony coming up next in Celebrity Gossip.